Hello, everyone. I am excited to be here to have the very first episode of Let's Talk About That. This idea came from the fact that, for years, really, I have been saying to people, wouldn't it be great to just be able to sit around and talk about all the things like the philosophers did, but except have like a really cool mix of people and opinions and points of view so that we can all learn and think and just ponder ideas. And so I wanted to put something together like that. My business life or my professional life, I'm a business coach, but this is going to be topics that range the gamut of things from inclusion and racism to fat phobia to motivation. And so today, our very first episode, what we're doing is we're going to talk about procrastination and motivation and a little bit about what we all think about those things, and then hopefully have some ideas and thoughts on how to help you maybe feel better about how you sit in procrastination and motivation. So I have some guests who are joining me today, and this is the first episode. So we're still figuring out how all of it is going to work and making sure that it runs smoothly. I think one of my guests may not be here yet, but I'm going to start by introducing to you Karen Wilson, who is Karen Wilson works with small businesses and startups who want to take a strategic approach to marketing their business. She believes we should all have life outside of our businesses so we can enjoy our successes. So thank you for being here, Karen. I also have Jen Hayward, who is the founder of Connect TV, and she is a Métis comedian who is trying to make the world better. And Jen, has Angie popped in yet?
No, it's just the three of us for now. So if she pops in, I will add her to the screen as a surprise.
Well, I will tell you all who she is and hope that she figures out how to get in. Angie Cole is a coach and mentor for responsible renegades and rebellious rule followers. Her work integrates the inner and outer realms of life and business, which means she can help you crunch the numbers while uncovering how your daddy issues are holding you back. So hopefully she'll be able to come in and join us. But for now, the three of us, the way this is meant to work in my head is that we're just gonna talk about these things and how they impact our lives, and maybe whether or not we have insights and thoughts that we can add to the conversation so we can learn from each other. And I believe if you are watching live and you're watching from the Connect TV channel specifically, if you post questions, we'll be able to see them, I think, right? So procrastination and motivation. The reason I picked this as our very first topic is because I've known that I was doing this show for a month, and I knew that I needed to pick my topics and my guests, and I had so many great ideas, and I just wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it. And so a few days before we finally went live, I was like, okay, I'm picking, but let's pick this topic because it's such a thing, right? It's such a thing. You can want to do a thing, you need to do a thing, and actually getting started can be so difficult. And not only is it so difficult, it makes us kind of feel crappy about ourselves. So that's what I wanted to start off with, was to say, what is it that you think, or how do you feel about procrastination, either personally, or how do you think even the world sees procrastination? Go for it, Karen.
Okay. I think procrastination is one of those things that's been framed as a negative. And it's actually, to me, not really a negative. I tend to view it as, it takes me a long time to process things as a person. And procrastination is actually me processing what I need to do. And I also rely on deadlines to keep me on track and get things done. If I get too many kind of crammed in together, the procrastination totally messes me up. But generally, I do my best work right before the deadline. So if you want me to get you something early, you have to set an earlier deadline. And don't tell me it's flexible, because that's too much information. I
Do you have
need
any
the
thoughts on
pressure.
that, Jen?
Sorry, did you call me?
Yeah, I said, what do you think? Like, what is it like? Where do you sit in the world of procrastination and like how
Well,
you feel
motivation.
about
Well,
it?
it's changed. It's changed. So obviously, when I ran a courier business, there's just no time to procrastinate on the work. So you're going 24/7. If you're late with a package, you have to deal with it. Like, so time was of the essence. So I think I've gone so far the other way, where there's just days where it's like, is my job to sit and think today? And I don't have any guilt about it anymore, because now I'm doing consulting and stuff. And I actually think a big part of my job in the work that I'm doing is to think, and to do things. Also, I procrastinate on the things I don't want to do, so that will never change. So my taxes, we realize I don't want to be in the same situation I am in 4 years, so we have a bookkeeper now, and so part of their job, unfortunately, is also nagging us. I need these documents by here. So that's how I keep on the things. So sometimes it's just lack of interest in things, or numbers are scary, or I don't want to clean my bathroom, or whatever the case may be. But now I think I take it so far the other way. But there was things before I'd never procrastinate at work, but in my home life, when did I make that doctor appointment to check my thyroid? 4 years ago. I'm probably due for a checkup. So I certainly do it. But a lot of it is fear-based. And sometimes I just don't want to do stuff, and I think at age 47, and I've had ups and downs, that sometimes I just say I'm done. I don't want to do stuff. And I'm okay with that now at this point in my life. But I also work for myself. It's a little harder when you're working for a lot of different people, or you're working for one boss who is expecting things on a certain timeline. But I think we're getting better. COVID has helped people understand that life happens no matter what. And sometimes things won't get done. And how important was it to start with?
Yeah. I mean, already a whole bunch of the things that I hoped would come up has started coming up. One is procrastination. Like, why do we do it? Right? Fear is a big reason, lack of motivation for whatever reason. And so I really want to talk about motivation in a minute, because, for example, deadlines is a true motivation, right? If you don't have, it's not necessarily that you don't want to do a thing, but like you just don't want to do it yet. But some things you just really don't ever want to do them. And so there's different things that get in the way, but the whole sort of hustle harder culture makes it so that we're all like doing so much, and we're all in like go go go, and not only go go go, but I'm supposed to always be going, right? Like if you're not doing more, like, hey there, lazy. And like it's so pervasive, this idea that we need to do all the time. And
You said doo-doo, and I have to acknowledge that and giggle. Carry on.
Yeah, like it's everywhere. It's always that you're supposed to do more. And so sometimes,
Can I ask the question? Is it women or is it everybody?
It's society.
I think
I honestly don't see Josh having this problem. He's in the background. I love him, but I don't see him having too much to do. I don't see him having that drive, and I actually admire that. He's like, he's doing his entrepreneur too, and doing his work, and he does it, but he's not adding 3,000 projects like
I think that there's a different pressure on women for sure. But it's kind of, I think there's men who experience it, but it depends on the industry you're in.
True.
Too. So it's and your personality, because some people are just not interested in that culture, and they're going to push back against it no matter where they are.
Well, we have a cultural difference as well, right? So, there's settler, known as settler time, and then there's indigenous time, which, can be used in a negative way. But sometimes what it means is, and I'm going to say, for those who are like, don't just bring the indigenous stuff, the Bible has it too, everything in its place, right? It's sometimes the creator says, we're going to have a storm and you're not going to have power for 10 days. I don't know if it happens organically, or, we're chosen because we're holding freedom rallies. I don't know, maybe. That's right. I'm going to get you canceled before we start. But there's all those reasons. But are we supposed to be doing as much as we do? And what is the driving factor? So, I mean, my husband and I came up with sort of a, we came to, in the States, they're called in reservations, not reserves. And we drove through Seneca, and like nothing was open, and we were just laughing. And it was like, settle down, settler. We'll open when we want, right? Like it's like they're managing their business just fine, but they'll be there when we want. But we're used to a certain set of standards of when things should get done. And I will tell you that I used to be harder on myself on this than anyone else would have been of me. And now I think learning to be lighter on myself and saying, yeah, and also trying not to overcommit is a big thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an interesting
part.
perspective because we that's a part of decolonization that I haven't personally explored enough yet.
Well, and it's hard too. I mean, I've worked my entire life in indigenous world, right? Like from everywhere I've worked to, and we still have deadlines and things like that, and no different. But then I went into a really heightened thing. So while we're all learning that, but it really is what is the drive to do so much? Is it because society sucks so much that we want to help as much as we can or escape our own feelings in life? I mean, I'm not the interviewer. Sorry, Lara. I told you I would do this.
No, this is what I want. I want you to share the things that you think or the things that you know and the things that you wonder, because that's all part of this. Is I think that there's a bunch of layers to procrastination. One of the things is we have too much to do, and so no wonder there are things we don't want to do. I think that there's too much. I think that hustle harder, the do more, be productive, even that whole language around how do you be more productive, which I now say, well, maybe you don't need to be more productive. You just need to be more effective. How can you do less and still get things done instead of being like, how do I do more? Because I think, I have been sick a lot. I have all kinds of other things. And so I don't have the energy other people do. And I think maybe that has helped me just sort of lean into, I don't need to work 80 hours a week to be a successful person. I really, really think that we, as a society, and North America is particularly bad at this, right? I was watching a couple of shows lately. There's Emily in Paris, and the other one is, I think, called 10%. And both of them had an American that went to Europe. And like in the offices in Europe, the staff were like, why are you still working at 8 p.m.? Oh, we do not work on weekends, right? Like the whole like work harder, harder, harder. When you have that many balls in your head, when you're trying to do a million things, no wonder some things get dropped. And no wonder you don't do the things that aren't urgent, or you don't do the things that aren't interesting. Like, right. Mm-hmm. All of those things make a lot of sense to me when we're trying to be crammed all the time. Like I want like that slower living. We can still do a lot of things, but like maybe not be so miserable about it.
I love that there are companies that are, there's this movement to go to 4-day weeks, and companies are finding it's more productive. And it makes sense because it is not realistic. If we think about a 40-hour week, it is not realistic to be working that entire time. We would be so exhausted. And that's on top of the commute and other obligations in the community, with family, with friends, all of that stuff. We are pushing ourselves way, way, way too hard. And then when you layer in a pandemic and power outages and storms due to climate change, and it becomes just a lot to deal with. And no wonder we procrastinate.
Absolutely. But I think the other thing is the whole procrastination is there are things we don't want to do. And why don't we want to do them? So,
well, why
did we say yes to doing them?
Sorry, yes. Why did we say yes? Right? So there's that's a thing that I've also gotten better at noticing. Am I about to say yes to something that I don't want to do? Right? Like there have been a lot of things in my life like that where I said yes to something, and then as I get nearer to it, I'm dreading it and I'm dreading it. Why? Then I hate past Lara for having said yes to a thing I didn't want to do, and I just felt like I should do it or obligated to do it. Like, ugh. All of those are reasons to procrastinate on a thing, things that scare you. is a thing. For me, my ADHD, like it's known with ADHD that without like a certain level of sort of maybe panic is the word, it's hard to start. And so for me, the last minute has always been when I go, go, go. And I spent most of my life feeling terrible about that, right? Like I should do it sooner versus knowing that, number one, so Karen, to your point earlier, like if you want to make sure I don't do something, tell me that I can get it to you whenever I can get it to you, right? Whenever works for you. I'll be like, oh, that's a bad idea, right? If you don't give me a deadline, whenever works for me may never arrive. And so knowing that a real and true deadline is there is what can be one of the things that motivates me, and to not feel bad about that, right? I will just upfront say, if you don't give me a real deadline, it's sketchy if I'm going to do that. And it can't be like, sometimes you'll see people make the suggestion, like, just put it in your calendar, right? Just put it in your calendar and then you'll know you should do it then. I'm like, but I know that I made that up, right? Like that is not a real deadline. I'm not like, you can't pull the wool over my eyes, Lara. Like that was made up. And so
we had a standing appointment in our calendar for my husband and I to do our finances, to reconcile our bank account once a week. And it's still on the calendar. And we have not had one meeting because we're like, cool. And then we go back to watching like Damages or Law and Order because it's just way more fun. But to your point, though, about why we procrastinate and stuff, but I think it's a process. We may think we're procrastinating, but are we? And I ask that because what are we doing? Are we doing things like today? Like, before this, you were asking me a couple questions and I was like, I did not think this out because I'm like, I'm a panel on a show and I'm at a friend's house where they have 5 kids. And I'm like, I didn't think that out, did I? And sometimes that's my issue is I'm like, I want to go have fun, help my friend with this, then go to Fun Haven after this, work on this briefing note because that's the life I've chosen. So I think sometimes it is of my own doing, but it's because I've actively made a decision for fun over not fun. As long as that deadline is not looming tomorrow, I know that I will be able to get it done because that's my skill set. But I'm also thinking about it. And I think we do not put enough credit. So my husband and I both are doing blogging now, right? His process fascinates me, but it's his process. And it's because he's not a writer, but he did, like I write for CBC and different things and a comedian, and that's what I do. Well, he takes his concept and he thinks about it. And then he writes does what I call my data dump, but he does it on a piece of paper, right? And he hates typing. And then he reads it into the computer, does it, and then fixes it up, right? And that's his process. And my process is to think about something for a long time and eventually write it. Like I'm writing stuff now that I thought about 4 years ago because I only have, my brain is all over the place and I couldn't just do that. And then it takes me 10 minutes to write from start to finish, minus a little edit. So I don't think we can negate the way that we're procrastinating because we're still getting our work done. It's when we've piled too much on the table, or we're actively avoiding something that we don't want to do. My house was a disaster for a while when I was running Go For It at the end, and it was. So to get it was so overwhelming. I was like, I would rather sleep in dirty clothes than have to do any of this work. So I called in help. I got my friend, actually where I am now, her and her kids came over and they helped me sort through things and helped me out because I literally needed someone to hold my hand through it. And so if you get it, that's another reason I think people procrastinate is they're just too overwhelmed. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to do nothing. And that's easier.
Yeah. And one of the things you said just there was like all the thinking work and then you do it. So what if you reframe to understand that you're not procrastinating, you are working? Even if
I do it all the time. I literally tell him because I'm giving my son heck because he's 19 and trying to live my lifestyle. And I said, no, I earned my lifestyle through all of the way that I do things. I said, I know my workload. I know what money's coming in. I know what we can afford to do. And today is Law and Order Day. And that's how I'm living my life because I've been up and down with mental health. So I'm also keeping that in check. And now at this age, if you listen to the universe, pretty slow down and listen to it, it'll be really clear where you're supposed to go. The gut feelings that you have are usually right. But we take on the extra things because we think we should, or because we want to do a better thing. Like, my passion is my Zambian project, right? And that's not because of the Jen needs to do this. It's because I just know that's where I'm supposed to be. So even during a bankruptcy, everything lined up, and I'm heading to Zambia and living there for 2 months, and I'm able to do my work and their work. So for sure, I'm going to take some downtime now, because I'm going to be working some really long, hot days for 2 solid months. And so I think it's how you, like you said, it's a reframing it. We give ourselves heck for not being busy all the time, but I've stopped doing that completely. I give myself heck for a lot of other things, but not doing nothing, because I said I've earned that, and honestly, things just keep falling into the way they're supposed to be, instead of me trying to push them into the way I think they should be. And I think that's my key learning from the past year on workloads and procrastination. It all ends up working out anyway. What was I stressing about?
Yeah. Well, and I think that we don't put rest and self-care on our to-do list. It's just that thing you do when the to-do list is all done. But if you don't have it on your to-do list, you can actually run out of the steam you need to get the to-do list done.
I don't know if you knew this, Karen, but last year, literally, it was so hot. I was working 20-hour days in the heat in our warehouse when I owned our fulfillment center and everything. And I collapsed at work. And people stepped over me because efficiency was so important for this project. And people were like, I guess we'll call her an ambulance and she's out. And because I didn't do that, because to me, self-care was drinking a bottle of wine at the time in a bathtub. Well, that was actually called alcoholism, as it turned out. But for me, that was what I called self-care, or a massage every now and then. So now it's an active part of caring for who I am, is part of my day-to-day, with the exception of eating McDonald's. I think I do a pretty good job with it.
So, I mean, this pulls in all these different pieces of it, right? Are you doing too much? Are you procrastinating because you're saying yes to things you mean no to? And certainly, as business owners, we all have a little bit more flexibility on what we get to say no to, right? I often say one of the reasons I work for myself is because when I had a job, they kept thinking they could tell me what to do. And apparently that's supposedly true, but I was not super down with it, because for me, the best way to make sure that I'm going to follow through on things is for it to excite me, right? There has to be that thing where I'm like excited about it. I want to do it. The more I want to do it, the more likely I am to do it, which is, an ADHD trait, but I feel like it's an everybody trait. Like, let's just think about that for a minute. I think all of us like to do things that we like to do, and it's easier to do things that we enjoy. And then do less of what we don't enjoy, right? And in my business, in any work I do, there's a lot of things I just say no to now because I know I'm not very good at it, right? I'm like, no, you know what? I don't do reports because I will spend way more time avoiding trying to write the report than it will even take me to write it. Like, I'm going to take like 3 times the amount of time this thing's going to take, just feeling crappy about it. And then I can do it. And it's not that I can't do it, because that's the other piece, is sometimes we say yes to things just because we're capable of doing them. But that alone isn't a good enough reason to do things if you don't want to. Do either of you have anything to add to that particular thought?
I love saying no to people. I do. Lately, I have, because before I didn't, and that's how we ended up in our situation that we were. But it's really okay for me to say no. I don't feel like we've developed our own little. It's a personal, but also entrepreneur, strategic plan. So for work-wise, does it fit anywhere on those lines for the next 3 years? If not, I do have to say no, or I have to eliminate something. You can't just keep piling into, here we've got all the cups and you just can't keep piling. You have to take something out. And there's nothing I want to take out right now. Right. But then also outsourcing the things you don't want to do. So that's where we learned, well, I could spend an hour crying every day trying to do these finances, or I could give them to a bookkeeper. And so I wasn't in a position to be able to do that before, but because it was such an arduous thing, but it's just, I'm not good at it. But working with, the biggest change for me is I only work with people I want to work with right now. I said no to a lot of really lucrative potential opportunities when we lost Go For It. And there are just people, if you're not ethical, if you're not honest, and if you don't share some of the same values of doing good in the world, then why are we working together? Like, there has to be. So right now I'm working on so many different projects that every day I like the assignments that come my way from people, right? Even if I don't understand how it fits into the big picture, maybe I'm just doing a briefing note for one of the people, one of the people I'm a consultant or on retainer for, but that briefing note will help him with the work that he's doing with his economic reconciliation, right? And so that's important work. So it feels important to me. So that's how I choose what I'm doing. And also making sure that, we can afford to live, which doesn't mean Starbucks every day, which doesn't mean all the things. So we've definitely cut down what we are working towards, and that the hustle isn't everything anymore. So
Yeah.
that's my take on what you just said, is that like it's life. I could have keeled over last year and I would have been like, what did I do all this work for? And I couldn't say anything. Our customers still got helped by other people. Our employees went on and did other things. What was I grinding myself into the ground for? To make some deliveries? No. In the end, it's not a passion job. It's not a job for anyone really. But in the end, now working with you, working even on Connect TV, we're not just choosing any shows, right? We're choosing people I want to work with, people who have the same kind of mindset. Let's talk, let's discuss, let's open our minds and become better citizens. That's what we're trying to do. And Lara's one of those people, right? Karen's one of those people. That's why I like being here.
Yeah. I love what you were saying about having that alignment of values, because the clients that I have let go of because there was a mismatch in values have taken such a huge weight off of my shoulders that you don't necessarily even realize you're carrying. But, I felt that way even when I was in the corporate world. If you're working for someone else and you realize that this person has some really disturbing things about them that they believe, I don't want to work for them. And they're exploitative or whatever. Like, that's, I've tripped over information like that before, and that's not fun. And so it's nice to have the freedom, and it's certainly a privilege to have the freedom to be able to say no to working with people who don't fit in my value system, because it makes my life better. And I hope that then the work that I do is more valuable for the people I do work with.
We do a better job when we're not exhausted, stressed out, and running around like chickens with our head cut off, right? Like, we do a better job. And that's it. That's why I'm like anti, like, do all the things. Like, it's not about doing more. It's about doing the things that we do well and honoring who we are and recognizing the things we don't do well. Which, like, for me is not like attention to details. And so, as we all know, Angie's not here. She's not here because I told her it was on Tuesday.
So you and I are similar that way. But it's funny, you said, do all the things. It's funny, Adventure Seeker Sarah, that's her motto, do all the things. But it's not like, hey, today we get to pick up dog poo, right? It's do all the excitement. It's feeling the things. It's doing the things that feed your soul and benefit the people around you. And I think where society's gone wrong is sometimes that grind is that, like, there is this entire culture of boss babe that needs to stop. And it does. It's just that, like, being a female, I won so many awards at Go For It. And I was like, why? Like, I was really trying to figure out, because I kept telling everyone, I don't know what I'm doing. And I told business coaches, I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, no, you can do it. I said, everyone stopped cheering me on. I said, maybe someone should have said, hey, you don't know what you're doing. Stop it. But everyone just kept going because they wanted me to succeed, when no one actually realized, hey, maybe she shouldn't take on that extra warehouse and that extra space, right? But all my advisors said, you can do this. There's no losing. Well, I figured it out how to lose. But again, at the end of the day, it's I have to set what I want, what you want, and it's about those values and what you want to do. And if you can have fun you can have fun doing anything. If I was a waitress, if I was a server, I would be having fun with it, right? That's my new thing. I'm not going to do something, or if I do it, I'm going to have fun with it. When I have to clean my bathroom, well, I'll have fun and I'll crank some music up, right? Have you tried house cleaning without music? Gross. It's not something that you want to do. So you have to make whatever you're doing either beneficial or fun, and fun is benefit, because then you're feeling better about what you're doing, and you can do it, right? Like I'm always quoting my friend, I'm Auntie Jen, and the toddler, and he's just the sweetest, and it was so noisy here, and all of a sudden, boom, he went down because he was just having so much fun. Do you know what I mean? He couldn't get everything in. He couldn't get 45,000 games that he wanted to play in this morning, and he tried his absolute best, but he didn't feel bad about it. He's like, I'm going for a nap now. And I was like, I want to live like that, where we're just living according, as long as we're still able to meet our deadlines. And that's what we're talking about. Procrastination is that, why not fit a little more fun in, and somehow the work still gets done. It's sort of like when you pay yourself first, in that whole model is that you're reinvesting in yourself. And so finding your passions, and for me, hanging out with my little buddy or hanging out with my friends is what feeds my soul a little bit. So I'll do that for a little bit, and I'll crank out 5 hours of work in 2 hours later on. But that's when you're an entrepreneur. When they're TikToking, or not TikToking, you can't say that anymore, when they're watching the clock, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know how much time in government I got paid to do nothing? Where I was like, I have no idea what to do right now. But it was about putting in the hours, not about the work product. And so I think it's just better. I don't charge by the hour per se. I charge by the piece and by the work that we're doing. And I find I will work longer and get paid less on a project that I like than take a higher amount of money, as long as it all balances out for me. Now, it seems very hippy dippy, but if you knew me 3 years ago, I would not have been preaching this. But if you could learn anything, in my upcoming book, How to Bankrupt Your Business in Under 5 Years, it's a lot of these lessons. It's trying to do too much, trying to fill in that stereotype of who people think you should be. And also, you should probably get an accountant. That's definitely on my list.
I love the distinction of do all the things in a good way and in a bad way, right? That whole, like, I want to do all the things that excite me and feel good and that fill me up, and like, why shouldn't I go for it? Versus I have to do all the things, right? Like all the heavy and the, like, everything is my responsibility. I have to do it alone. And again, coming back to that whole, like, the societal expectations, it's better if you do it alone. You shouldn't need help. The harder you work, the more impressive. Like, all of those things speak to why we try to do too much, versus like finding ways to do things that do work. In my coaching program, I have accountability sessions, which is just like, let's all be on Zoom and we're going to do stuff at the same time. And if you told me you did it, you're more likely to do it. The same is true if you came and I said, like, can you come and sit with me while I clean my kitchen? If you come and sit with me while I clean my kitchen, I'm going to do it. Right? It's just like, be my buddy. I was recently on a meeting where I heard somebody say, I will take that task as long as somebody else is my buddy on this. I know what to do, but if I don't have somebody who does this with me, it's going to go to the end of the list. So understanding what helps you and not feeling bad about it, because that's another piece. If you think I should be able to do it alone, or I just need to do it. That's like one of those trigger words for me. Whenever somebody says, I'm like, okay, so how are you going to do it? I just need to do it. I'm like, right? Like, that all you're doing is like,
break it down.
Like, why is it going to be different?
3,000 pieces. Yeah, if you need to.
Yeah, like, don't just do it. Say, okay, what's going to be different, right? If I go and try and do this again, why don't I try something different instead of like trying to barrel through something we know isn't working?
Well, I hate to, I'm giving a plug again, but definitely everyone on Friday nights follow Adventure Seeker Sarah at 6:00, because she talks about a lot of these things, and she fits in and sort of been our model for this kind of life. Is that, but we've all created the life we have, right? Like, whether we like it or not, whether it's situation, whether it's fate, we're still in the situation. People who didn't have generators because the other people who did thought ahead. Neither is wrong or right, but we all put ourselves in the same situation because someone thought, hey, life insurance is more important than, Starbucks every day, or every day we make the choice with whatever we have. and we're doing the best we can with whatever we have. But the point is that walking around feeling bad or guilty about those choices, then that's time to change. So either you're right or you're wrong. And if you're right and you really should be doing something, because if you don't do this, the consequence is you're going to lose your house or your job. Well, then that's something you definitely need to put on a high priority. Fill it with other fun things. But if it's something that is low and no one cares if you do this or not, like I wanted paper mache to really take off at my house. Like I bought the glue and I bought the tissue and everything, and I was going to do a show on it. And I'm like, this isn't my thing. That's why I do a show called Jen Try Stuff, because I don't have any hobbies or anything. And I want to try these things. I joined a ball team that I haven't shown up to. I look every day. I say they have enough people and I don't come. I'm the worst, right? But I wouldn't leave them hanging and sign up and not, if they didn't have, oh, they don't have enough people. So I'm definitely going next week. But my point is that, even when we're committing and stuff, the worst thing is to overcommit and underdeliver, because then you're kind of the jerk for saying that you're going to do something for not doing it. But to be able to say, I think I can get to that, is probably better than saying for sure and then check back later, right? I've often made a lot of assumptions based on brief texting because we're so busy. And I was like, I thought we had this plan. They're like, no, that was an idea. It wasn't an actual plan. Oh, I didn't understand the concept. So that communication, I think, is important in procrastinating too. What are the actual deadlines here? Because I've definitely had clients who are like, oh yeah, no, it's due, but it really wasn't due. There's no, like you said, well, for 2 weeks or so. So that's 2 more weeks I could have been doing other things, or I can triage my work accordingly so that it's not overwhelming.
Do you acknowledge the things that motivate you? Like, so this is part of it, right? So we want to do more of the things that we like to do. We want to do less of the things we don't like to do and find ways to maybe outsource them or just like change our lives to have less of them. But like, do you know what motivates you? Like, have you spent time thinking about that so that you can put more of that into your life and your work?
Yeah. I think about that a lot, especially in the last year and a half. One is just doing work that is aligned to what I'm doing in my business, what I'm interested in personally. There's things like deadlines that are motivating, but I find that lately I'm looking more at just the energy that I'm feeling in moment to moment, day to day, and what is it that's a priority right now that fits my energy in this particular time. And I'm actually getting more done approaching it like that than going off of a to-do list where I'm like, oh, I have to do this, 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 and this today, when none of those things are priorities or something that I feel like I have the mental capacity to do or feel drawn to. And boy, it makes a big difference to kind of go with the flow instead of letting all these shoulds creep up into what I have to say.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you found that. Maybe it's just our age, Karen, where we're like, who cares? But I think motivation is cutting things out. But I'm motivated by travel, and that wasn't a thing before. So it was something that I said, okay, I want to, because the connections, because I think we're all motivated by connections. And I think if you start looking at everyone you meet as a potential connection, I don't mean a potential contact or a potential, but someone that we're connected with at that moment. So whether it's a cashier, whether it's that, you can find the motivation then to be a good human being and keep positive and all those things. But the motivation for the work for me comes to we've done the work for our long-term plan. So we know what we need to do to get there. And so we've never had that before. We're always just trying to survive. So I think we're past there is a lot of healing that that I needed to do before I would have been ready to actually look at things. And that healing didn't come in any sort of box of this is how you heal, but everyone has healing they need to do. So I think some of that motivation, I can't be motivated for the good things unless I'm getting rid of the negative things and making room for the good things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that involves people. I barely talk to my extended family, like my birth family. It may be even some of my kids right now. You're adults now. You got to make your own choices. It could be, again, the clients. You don't put yourself. And there are, I'm the places that I feel called to help. That's where I help. I can't help every single person in front of me, but I'm really good at connecting and say, if you just take 2 seconds and you say, "Are you okay?" Or I tell this story, and it's really funny. I was having a day in my friend's, like in a forest, and I was crying and just having some time with nature and the creator and just really crying. And 3 boys were playing capture the flag, and they came up and they saw me crying there, and they slowly backed up and walked away. And it was really funny, but I thought, I don't know. I think my kids might have asked if that person's okay, like just thinking back on it. And that we need to treat all of those things. And that will motivate you, is to get through your day and say, okay, not how much work did you do, but how much life did you live? And I think at the end, that will provide a better picture. Okay, I got my taxes done. I got my book done. I got whatever. I met this really cool person, who did these things. I was able to witness, like, I'm not like American Beauty where there's a bag blowing in the wind and like, but I think if you can see the small joys, and for me, sometimes that's, connecting when I need that extra deeper connection. I have certain people I do that with, a message, and I'll just be direct with my needs now. And that's my motivation. Can you keep me accountable tomorrow? I don't want to do this task. I hate it. Something about finance or whatever. Would you mind holding me accountable for it? And all that is a gentle nag that they put a timer on, and say, hey, Jen, ask me to remind you of this. It's not them taking on my problem. It's them helping me. And I would do the same for others. So motivation for me, it's not about the motivate to do the bad things or to do the good things. It's about how are we living our life at the end of the day? And if we are doing and feeling and accepting where we are at this present moment in our life, it doesn't feel like we're doing too much because we're not taking extra on. We're being present in the moment of the things that are happening around us.
I love the way you talk about the connection and that presence in the moment, because it gives this kind of really beautiful picture of human to human, that interaction, and not just this passing by of two people, a cashier at a store or whatever. You're actually entering that interaction with the intention of connecting and not just passively going about your business.
Oh, thank you. Well, connectivity, it's really what it's about. It's about these small connections. I told Lara yesterday, it was funny. I went for coffee the other day and then a lunch date, and that was all I planned. I don't go out and network as much and things like that because I don't really want so much business, and I got 2 clients based on just hanging, because sometimes people like the new energy that I'm bringing and they want to be around that and how we can work it, right? And so sometimes I say, you know what, I can't do that whole project, but I could certainly manage it for you. And I know all these other people who are working at home and want to, do administrative work and things. And so I found a way to use those connections so I can get more work, but mostly I'm helping other people do the jobs. Like if someone said, Jen, I want you to do this pivot table, like I'm not giving that away. I actually like doing that, which is weird because I'm not a finance person. But if someone was like, oh, I really need help with this analysis on it, well, you know what, or a coach. Okay, well, Lara Wellman, a communication specialist, whoever it is, that's a small connection that you can just naturally make, but you don't know if you don't. I'm not saying have a deep connection with everyone you meet, but treat people and places, and it's only anew over the last couple of years, and only really in the last few months where I think I've really shed a lot of my past, and now I'm just really starting, but not exuberantly enjoying life. I mean, like calmly enjoying it, going, when we look back and we think about motivation and we think we had no plan in our life. We've been to Africa 3 times. I've been to Belize. We've done these things. I've written a book. It wasn't good, but whatever. I've done all of these things in my life because I just decided to go and do them. So now that I have my vision of what I want, it's not an end goal. If I want to have this much money by here, I want to have this much. It's my motivation is the journey along the way to reach our goals. And our goal is a nomadic lifestyle for my husband and I within 2 years. And so we're working to get there. But when we're in it, it's really about the journey. Like I said, I want to be a little hobo where I'm just experiencing people and things like that. So that's what motivates me is the idea of being able to create what we want and understanding sometimes that negative stuff. But I will tell you, laundry will always be on the bottom of my list, and until I can, so I have to get rid of clothes, obviously. And
but I mean, this is where you can be like, I'm going to keep doing laundry, but I'm not going to stress about not putting it away. If I just have to grab it out of the baskets, like I'm not going to now, on top of it not being put away, shame myself for not putting it away, because that's like exhausting to constantly feel like you're not doing enough, right? There are certain things that you can just say no to. And I think the whole conversation of flow is so good and important, but I found myself in a position, maybe last year, I forget, doesn't matter when, where I was like, yes, I want more flow. And then I was trying to force flow, right? You can't force flow.
I've done that. Are you kidding? I'm like,
No,
I'm
you
Zen
can't.
today. I'm Zen, Jen. Could you, and I will. My husband will call me on it, or anyone I do business with will call me. What happened to Zen, Jen? Because I'm like, I'm waiting for you, especially when you're waiting for others. It can be when others are waiting for you, then it can become a neg game. And it's like, well, let's all revisit these priorities and see if we can dump anything off, right? But absolutely, it's you need to, you still have to get stuff done, but you don't need to crap all over yourself because it didn't get done, right?
And you probably don't need to get as much done as you think. And you don't necessarily need to do it the way that you think. And so one of the conversations I want to have on this show is around education. I mean, we have been trained our whole lives. So I do think, Jen, that our age helps us, care a little bit less about what other people think. Like you get to that point. But I also think that as a society, some people, not all the people, some people are starting to really stop and rethink how things work, right? And so with my, experience learning about unschooling and just, oh my goodness, right? Trying to let go of what we think things are supposed to look like. Even when I am intentionally trying to let go, it becomes but you're supposed to, but you have to, but it has to, but like what? Like it creeps in so quickly. And so knowing that some of the things that we do a lot of the things for some of us that we do and the success that we think we're looking for are not ones we chose for ourselves. It just like this, next I'm supposed to do this, next I'm supposed to do this. When it's supposed to look like this, you're supposed to want to do this. And without stopping and asking ourselves what we want, without saying like, what if I don't want more? I just want slower. What if I look for the easier way, right? So it could be that you're looking for work. You're like, I got to send 100 emails to 100 people and pitch a specific thing. And if I don't get any projects, I'm going to be a failure. And that's the only way. It's like hard work, push, push, push. I got to write these letters. I got to that. Or what if I just go have conversations with people? I'm going to go and just talk to the people I know, tell them what I'm doing, find out what they're doing, and see if my community and my network is going to help me get somewhere, right? Does it have to be this transactional, like go hard, hard, hard? Or can it be as simple as I'm just going to do it not perfectly? Am I going to do it, like what are the things that you can do that make it easier? And if it doesn't work out, if you screw up and tell one of your guests the wrong date and they don't show up because they think it's next week, you also have to be a little bit forgiving of yourself, right? Like there's that whole, like, if we don't get it right, we suck, failure is terrible piece that is so demoralizing. We're always trying to be perfect so that we don't screw up, so people don't think we're not good enough, because if we're not good enough, nobody's gonna blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff is mind games and societal expectations, and not necessarily true.
One of the things that, as you were talking, I was reminded of, I had a mentor / manager / friend that I worked with, and she's the best boss I ever had. Amazing woman. And I would work with her today for sure. And she used to say to me, if I screwed something up, I would, I'd go and I'd tell her and explain the situation. And then she'd be like, no big deal. It's all good. We will fix this. What we're doing isn't an emergency. Nobody's gonna die. And it was so great to be associated with someone who had that frame of reference about the work that we were doing. And I still, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a firefighter. I am not in any kind of work that is life, I'm not saving anybody. The work I do, if it doesn't get done today, it can be done tomorrow and nothing changes. It's all good. And I love framing things that way because it helps me avoid beating myself up for when I do kind of drop the ball or tell someone the wrong day. Because there's an opportunity with that. You can invite her to come on another subject another day. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. And this is not about motivation or procrastination, but I just have to say this, right? So you think about the people who, the life is in your hands. I think about this sometimes and I'm like, it makes no sense. Doctors, when they're in school, have to work like 24-hour shifts. Like they work so hard that they must be out of their mind exhausted. I don't know that that's ideal for a doctor to be making decisions about people's health. Like, why is that the expectation? If you're going to be a doctor, you need to be willing to work beyond exhausted. And by the way, make sure that you tell all your patients that they should rest or else they're not going to be working optimally. But like, you better like almost kill yourself just to become a doctor. And I don't believe that anybody with that little sleep is like the best person to tell me what's going on. And like, I know lots of doctors like in the ER who have made mistakes in the ER, right? Like you're too tired to think things through. Like, anyway, now I'm just ranting. Like, why is that a thing? Why do we ask people to do things like that? Why is that? It's kind of like, we need you to prove yourself. We need you to, I don't know. I'm just going to stop and see if you have anything to say about that because I'm just getting wound up on this.
I think that goes back to what you were saying about homeschooling. With medical school, this has been the way it's been done since, modern medical schools were established. And so there hasn't been that challenge to the status quo. There's been little challenges. Like, residency hours have been capped in some places and things like that have happened. But ultimately, I think what would take to change that is a radical pushback against this, what is basically hustle culture in the medical field. And it's exploitative because they're also being paid peanuts when they're working those bananas hours. So with homeschooling, it has been such a radical concept in thinking about setting up a business and not relying on an employer for my sole income was amazing for helping getting me in the mindset of unschooling because and also just the timing of it, the world that we live in today, the status quo is not okay. And so there is so much pushback in so many different areas that I'm like, why should my kid go to school? Why should he have to do silly, busy work assignments that stress him out, that don't add any value and he learns nothing from it? I think pushing back on all of those, well, that's the way it's always been. I hate that phrase so much.
Well, yeah, it was always racist too, but we should probably stop that. Or, we were originally chattel. So I think, and I think to Karen, what you just said, and I think it's so important, from what Lara had said, is that we, it's when we crap on ourselves, right, for the choices or whatever. But I also think is that level of, how hard we on ourselves. Are we like that with others as well? And I think it's something we need to watch.
Mm,
Is that, are we creating this expectation on ourselves and others, right? Am I out at the playground for 3 hours, then come back and then snap at everyone around me? Why isn't this done? No, I have to. And I'll catch myself. And if I ever do, they'll call me on it, because I keep people around me who will keep me accountable to my values, and that's treating people properly. But I think there's so many. And so, I mean, I know I've posted so much about, the different kind of relationships, but the one you want with everywhere in life is I count, you count, right? And so that
right.
is your clients too, is that you count and so do they. So your mistake made, right? Yeah, if your friend was really upset about it, you made a mistake. Is this an ongoing thing? No, right? You know where you need extra help. I know where I need extra help. That's why I was like really stressed out about something before. And I said, it's going to work out. Let's just go ahead and do it, right? We could have had Connect TV perfect before we started. I could have had so much. And I said, I want to prove my concept. I want to work on it organically. And so when someone asks, what are you? I said, well, we're organic. We're right now raw content. We're not waiting for every duck. We're just going to do it. And it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to get messages out. We're going to connect. We're going to promote each other. We're going to be supportive. So when we're not crapping on ourselves, we need to make sure we're not doing that with other people as well, and keeping your circle with people who will keep you accountable. That doesn't mean not
Yeah.
having negative people in your life. There's people you're there to help. There's people there to help you. It's all about those connections and that balance. End of the day, how do you feel about your life? And if you're going to bed and saying, it wasn't a bad day, well then, hey, that's better, because so many people mindset is I didn't do enough, they didn't do enough. And if you're going to bed with no gratitude, then you're not going to bed happy. And then that will make you
Mm,
feel bad in the morning. And so it's really just settling your day. Could have done this better, but I'm not going to crap all over myself for doing it. They made a mistake and it cost me to do extra work. I'm not going to crap all over them. How can I coach them better, or coach them in some cases out of a job, right? If isn't this, is this really for you? I never fired people. I would coach them and say, why are you here? And they're like, I just need a job. Well, let's find you one that you're not going to hate so much, right? Because what good is doing, you can do anything. What good is doing something that you absolutely hate doing on a regular basis? I understand economic, and I understand, but even in that, you can find, if all you can make at this point in your life, and I was there, it was minimum wage, right? I worked jobs that were incentives for me to do better in life, and I've worked jobs that I could have, if I could have lived off that, I would have stayed and done it. But it's still about your attitude end of day, so you can get ahead a little bit every day. Some days it'll be great, and some days it'll be ugh. And then but the next day has to be a fresh day. If you're carrying your load to the next day, we use a Trello board on Trello, so we use like an old Cabana kind of board, but I really have. Here's all the stuff I have to do, here's how I want to do. And I put my fun stuff in there too. I do. And then I divide it by day. This is my plan. And then things that I didn't get done, I just, I put everything I did and things I don't. And then I'm just monitoring. And then I have an urgent file. If you don't do this, you don't get paid. Or if you don't do this,
yeah.
you're going to die, or whatever the case may be. And then at least I can take a glance end of day. And I always know, but I try not to keep it at a level that list is so long that I can't get it all done. And sometimes it gets there because I was having way too much fun. So sometimes it's the ebb and flow of time. There's going to be 3 hard days of work because I did procrastinate, but I'm not going to bum myself up about it. I'm going to do the 3 days of hard work. And then does that mean I go, I have more balanced lifestyle? Maybe, but maybe the next time will be the exact same thing. And if everyone's happy, then what is the big deal? Right? As long as I'm not stressing people around me, I'm not canceling a whole bunch of things because of my procrastination that I've really planned for it. Then so I do harder work in small spurts because I've been thinking about it while I'm going to Fun Haven today. I'm sure I will have some creative idea for a joke or a story or something while I'm doing something fun. I'm sure even as we've talked, I've thought about 8 things that I can write about. And that's what you do with your day. So, I mean, I'm really glad that Lara talked about this because I didn't realize how motivated I am to just chill and have fun. And that's a nice feeling, because before it was always, I suck. It wouldn't even just be, I suck because of this. It would just be, I suck by the end because every day I wasn't making my deliverables because there was too many deliverables for me to do. And so then you're like, well, do I even like myself? Do I like my life? So I was a miserable person. And people around me said, you sure drink a lot. And I'm like, yeah, because it's the only time I'm not miserable. And so then I quit drinking. And then that's when things sort of And then I hung around with nuns, which I really recommend. I think Lara's going to try and come to Zambia with me.
One day I'll come
One day.
for sure. And I
Yeah.
used to call myself lazy all the time, despite anything else that I did accomplish, because the idea that I was always supposed to be doing something was so, you know, hammered in. Like, and a lazy person, you're a lazy person if you love to like not work a lot versus
Maybe
it doesn't matter if I got other things done.
Your time to sit is someone else's time to take that slack up. Meaning it could be that the time that you're resting is a time for, like, so for me, I'm out of the spotlight a little more. I'm not doing as much comedy. I'm not doing a lot of that. I do a lot of resting. I could be up hustling. I could be on Josh's butt and say, we need to have, but I said, I'm organically taking time, and is what it has done. It has given other people opportunity to come up with synergetic ideas that benefit both of us. And instead of me being the driver of everything, because it comes down to control issues. If we're calling ourselves lazy because we didn't, well, that's on us. It's not on anyone else. We're the ones who are labeling ourselves based on a societal construct of what we should be doing. And we know that when we're doing it, yet we still do it. So it's a matter of having these conversations with lots of people.
And I think that's why I wanted to have these conversations.
I can't believe it's 1 hour already.
I know it's been an hour, so we got to wrap up. But I think these conversations are important because some of the things that we think, we don't even realize we're thinking them. Some of the things that we have programmed on how we should be operating and what is, you know, the definition of a good person and the definition of a successful person, all of that stuff is running in there without us even realizing it. And having conversations and being able to start noticing and asking yourself questions is the first step, right? So like, you don't need to, right? It's easy enough. I'm like, oh, I figured out what the problem is. Now I suck because it's not fixed, right? Like you need to you start noticing how things can work. What do I want to ask myself? Am I doing things I like? Am I procrastinating because I'm doing things I hate all the time? Or am I procrastinating because I need better deadlines, and if I just ask for them, I'll do them? Or if I need a buddy system, and then I'm going to do them? Like, what are the things that are actually happening that I can have control over? Because I know that I come from a place of privilege and it's not always the same for everybody, but there's a lot of things that we can change, and believing that we can tweak some things, improve some things, notice some things, stop believing some things, I think is the first step to starting to not feel like we're always behind, always sucking, always. And that's just, you know, I talk to a lot of people, and I think a lot of people spend time in that, like, beating themselves up space. And like, that takes so much energy to be mad at yourself all the time. And if we can start letting some of that go, whew.
And it's so rooted in the, you know, origins of capitalism in the early days before we had unions. People are overworked, underpaid, and like there's a need to let all of that go. I love the whole concept of things that are today don't have to be the way that they've always been. We can change stuff. And we should.
And we should. Like the whole, I mean, I hate it when people say that's how we've always done it. Like, so many things are being done badly. So many things. So your argument is terrible. Your argument tells me that regardless of what you were doing, we don't even need to look at it because it clearly should be changed. Anything we've always been doing is no good. So as we wrap this up, I want to thank you so much for coming in, doing this with me. It's always, you know, I knew this would be an experiment. I know some things I want to put in place to make things a little more structured, to make sure everybody knows all the times and all the things and all the questions more consistently. But I already have a lot of ideas, and people who said they'd be interested in coming and having conversations like this, 3 or 4 people per show. We're going to do it every other Tuesday at 2 p.m. If you have ideas or
Tuesday
thoughts
or
on
Thursday.
Thursday. Did I say Tuesday again?
You said Tuesday.
Thursday.
Well, that is why this keeps going wrong. I think today's Tuesday. I don't know.
Do you want to move to Tuesday?
Well, I don't know what's going on. Every other Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I would love people who are interested in coming to join me, because I would just want to have really rich, deep conversations like this so we can talk about the stuff that we want to think about some more. And I really, really appreciate both of you joining me and having this conversation with me today.
Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be an inaugural guest, and I'll pop in anytime you need someone. I have opinions about literally everything. So, and they're usually fun.
You don't need to be an expert. You just need to
Sarah Stewart too. I've got like almost the entire Connect TV family near me right now. We're all working on stuff today together, but that's funny. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.